nice doing this. I've never done this before. So, yeah.
Well, today's topics for this podcast are going to be the four new NFL teams that are being introduced, and those teams will be Air Force, Army, Navy, and the team that probably shocked me the most, the Houston Oilers. Four new NFL teams coming in,
Well,
going to make it 36 NFL teams. So it should be interesting.
yeah, I can speak.
So it should be really interesting now. We got more teams in the NFL, and considering that the Raiders are now with Boise State after the promotional game, it should be even more interesting for the rest of the week.
Yeah. So, I don't know. When I had experience with other leagues, I really didn't get why people would always say their team was the best when they were the ninth seed. And for the new teams, it's depending who they get. Because the new teams, it doesn't matter if they have a good franchise owner, it matters who they can acquire and who can step up to play.
Yeah, and also for new teams, you got to make sure you build chemistry with your new teammates. Because if you don't build chemistry, it doesn't matter how good the players are if they can't work together well. Then you're all just a bunch of people. You're not a team.
Like you could put the all these global kids, the global people they don't like to play. They don't want to play with someone. Like when you're playing in a league that has this much teams, you've got to have experience. You can't just come here being signed and saying you're going to be the top of the league. You have to have experience. And yeah.
So, out of these four teams, guessing wise, what would probably be the starting for their division? Since I'm guessing they're going to be the division 8 or 9. Let me look. Nine. New Division 9 is Navy, Army, Air Force, and Houston in that order.
I really it's I haven't seen any of the players that they have acquired. I haven't been doing much today, but if you're going to say you're the top of the league, you need to prove yourself.
I don't think they've signed any people just yet. I don't even think they have franchise owners just yet, but they got to by next week.
I think this is the time where if you want to play in this league, you announce yourself now because these people are going to need players and with amount of teams, you could be one of the people on those teams. So, yeah.
All right, and with before we move into our current game recaps of the current games that have happened, I'm going to make a quick announcement. Tonight is the primetime game, folks. Tonight, Cardinals, Texans. It was supposed to be yesterday. FOs didn't agree on the time. It's been moved to 8 p.m. tonight. I'd be excited about that game. That is going to be a big matchup, and I would not want to miss it.
And I said yesterday um when the Cardinals lost, I'm pretty sure the Cardinals are gonna just not demolish, but they're gonna have the tempo and they're going to win. I have the Cardinals. I'm
But
saying that.
but I'm also taking into consideration the Texans' big upset win against Jacksonville last week. Because
I guess
I mean, let's really be honest. How many people thought that the Texans were going to beat the Jaguars last week? Like,
a lot. Not a lot, or I don't know. like I wasn't really much active last week. I had some problems, so I couldn't really check. But
Yeah,
yeah.
but Jacksonville. Oh, really? Who thought that they could were gonna win last week? We're gonna lose last week to Houston, and I feel like Houston's they have that momentum on their side because they're the team that won last week. Arizona lost, but even though Arizona lost, they still have that number one seed since they have a win over Tennessee. And with that win, I say a Arizona, they're probably I would say they're gonna win, but it's probably gonna be by 14 or less. Texans will put up an excellent fight, but it just won't be enough to beat this Cardinals team.
As when you play Fusion, you've got to you've got to like consider that if they don't know who you are, they're not going to trust you. You have to trust. And that's the big thing about this league. You could have a team like there might be a team better, like one of those four teams in the new divisions might be although better than the current teams. They just don't have chemistry. Like that's why you need 2 team practices a day. That sounds like a lot, but that'll build you chemistry to be top.
And
So
it doesn't really have to be practices. It could be just like going to the pubs or something like that. Just something to build chemistry, especially for these newer teams.
and like with other leagues, when we lost the first game, they get mad. When you lose a game, it's a game. Like you can't just go out there and say I'm done with this league. You've got to consider that you lost a game, you're not out of the playoffs, and you can still go to the Super Bowl. Like
Yeah, it's still too. I would say it's still way too early to decide which teams are making it. I would say around like week 10 or 11 is probably when you could be seeing teams that are like playoff contenders, which teams are not playoff contenders, and which teams are going to need luck on their side to sneak into the playoffs. And I would say like a little past
yeah,
week 10, like maybe 11 or 12.
yeah. I would say right now, like if you would take the Houston Oilers and compare them to the Cardinals, it's not even close.
No,
But if the Oilers build chemistry and get good players from signings, then it could be equal. You like you could take a new team in the NFL and say, "Hey, you're going to be the best team," when they have nobody. Like you have to have someone people will know. Like if
but
you get an X factor on your team, that's going to build you a lot of notice.
there is one downside to that. You get a lot of players and you build confidence that also leads to big egos, and that's a problem. Because if you guys have too
Yes, because when
if you have too big of an ego, then you're gonna overconfident. You're gonna think you're the best team in the league, and you're overconfident, and then you go against and like a team in like that's a division or two below you, and you get smacked.
yeah, like I played in a league where we were on the Ravens and we had 18 guys. 17, not 17, around 10 of those guys barely played Fusion. And we ended up losing to the ninth seed 99 to 36. And like you've got to come to realize if you get like if you're saying you're top of the league and you lose to a ninth seed, it's not like if you would take the best player on a team and say that's your team, that's not a team.
No,
One person can't win a game. Like
that's.
you could
I mean, that could work in something like basketball, but not in football.
no, because you need defensive and offensive. As for example, I would have a defensive and offensive. Like if what you want to look for as a new team is a wide receiver that can intercept the ball, catch the ball, and have good running routes. It doesn't matter if you can catch the ball. If you have no run routes, you can rank yourself lower because you need run routes. That's the big thing.
Yeah. And we're going to shift into our next topic, which is going to be game recaps for games that have currently finished up in both NFL and college. We're going to start at college. So I'm going to start with this week's promotional game, the only one that's got official score right now. Boise State smashed the Las Vegas Raiders 68-14. I mean, people were picking Boise, but I don't think they were expecting it that bad.
Well, yeah. Like, that's why you gotta say this GM is pretty good. Because if you, a college team that, like, just occurred, and you can beat a team that, like, a college team versus a college team, they're both college teams. There's nothing you can really do. I
And
mean, you could, say, for example, you have the best wide receiver in free agency, and he gets free agent, and he gets signed. Doesn't mean he will play good. Like, I've played with other teams that when I went to their tryout, there was people really good. And when they played on the team, they would get mad when you didn't pass the ball. And I think what worked out so good for them is they built up chemistry, their run routes was good, and they were just catching a ball. And it also applies to defense. Like, if you have no defense, your team is going to get crushed. You could have a really good team with no defense. That defense applies to mostly all your team. You don't really need good offense. Like, you could get really good offense, but if you had really good defense, the amount of times they would score is very low.
yeah, and back to probably the point I said earlier, ego. That's probably another issue. That's an issue in some players because like they're used to being a top priority on their team they came from, but if they go to another team and they get less passes thrown their way and they get mad, well, that's something they gotta figure out because they're a part of a different team. They're not that number one anymore.
Yes, and like I was saying, you have to an X factor goes to a team and their ego goes up. Like, if you're the lowest ranked seed and once you get an X factor, apparently you go 10 up in the power ranking, it's not nothing. Just because you have an X factor can't prove it's a whole team. Like,
And
be
so,
honest.
and for the other college games, most are today, and I don't. There were none yesterday, and I think the other promotional game, Bearcats and Niners, I think that was a forfeit. Not sure who won though. I think the Bearcats won by a forfeit. I could be wrong, but
And
moving on to NFL, where where Bengals lost via forfeit to the Patriots, and the Saints won via forfeit to the Panthers.
you know what? I would rather lose 50-14 than rather quitting the game. That
Yeah.
just makes your team have not a good ego. That means you guys are crying because you lost a game.
Yep.
Like, there's so much games in this season that you can prove yourself. If you going like our team when we went 15 and oh, and then we lost to the worst team, and then we're just we lost we sucked in the playoffs because we thought we were going to win it all.
All right. Well, next game was New York Giants and Jacksonville, 77-53. Giants with the win. A little bit of a
That was
shocker, I would say, for most people, considering I don't think that's in game time, so that might have been no 7:30. Already the Jaguars back-to-back losses, so Jaguars are falling apart here. And other game that happened yesterday, 74-49, Seahawks beat the Chargers. That was an
Like,
exciting game to watch. I will not lie. That was a very fun game to watch. But so far, this hasn't been that many games throughout the week. Lots of games today. And tomorrow is the Thanksgiving Pro Bowl, so I would not assume there would be many games because a good amount of players are going to be preparing for that Pro Bowl game.
and like, respect to the people that they play the full game, but they lose. That shows you have a good ego. You're not just going to cry when you're down 14. Like, I played in a league. There's people, they were losing by 7 with a minute left, and they called it quits because they said, "Oh, we're just going to lose." You can't give up. Like, these teams that don't quit
One
are
thing
really good.
I will say about the Chargers was even though they lost pretty bad, they kept it close for most of the game. But it was the fourth quarter where they just could not stop Seattle. But I will be letting in the Philadelphia Eagles franchise owner as he's got something to say about these few games. Aims have enlisted.
Okay, what's up,
All right.
Okay,
So what do you have to
in
say
my
about these
opinion,
few games?
that Giants game was not a shocker because, Giants are, a great team. They have, like, LG. There was no way they were going to lose that game. I think they were trolling the whole game. That's why they didn't really get enough points. But, good for them for winning. And Seahawks, I wasn't surprised. They're just going to keep climbing up with the team that they have in the NFL. So,
Yeah. And if you don't have nothing else to say, I would like for you to go back to the audience.
okay.
All right. So I'm gonna. So
As
next person that I would like to let in is the Cardinals head coach, and then we will go to the Saints franchise owner.
hello.
We can't hear you if you're trying to say something. Well, he's not really saying anything, so I'm just gonna move him back to the audience. Maybe he's having audio troubles. I'm gonna let the Saints franchise owner Camo in.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
All right. So, can you also let my head coach in? It's Shadow.
He's not volunteering to speak, so I can't let him in.
Just raise your hand, Shadow.
Yeah, he's got to do that.
I'm not what? Just raise your hand, Shadow. Like for the stage thing, so we can let you up. Just raise your hand.
Alright, so you guys did play Carolina and ended in a forfeit, so...
Yeah, however,
whenever Shadow
we did
gets
do
in,
something else that day.
Alright, well, when Shadow gets in, you guys can say what happened to get you guys the forfeit win.
Well, although we did get the forfeit win, so you might think nothing interesting happened with the Saints that day. We actually did scrim the new Las Vegas Raiders, who were formerly the Boise State Broncos. And yeah, that's kind of what we did that day. But I mean, yeah, nothing really exciting there.
So
I was just wanting to say something.
Yeah.
With with winning a forfeit win, it doesn't mean that your team is bad or they're bad. It just means like they're losing and you winning. It's like there's nothing much like with a forfeit win is probably really good because then you can go you can go back to your team and say, hey, we got a win, and that's all you have to do.
I
And
mean,
with
yeah.
that, yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of one of those franchise owners who really likes to reschedule the games because even if they are a better team, and I'm not saying the Panthers are a better team, but even if they are a worse or better team, I still want to play them. But my team just told me to just get the forfeit win, so that's what we ended up doing.
Mm.
I'm just gonna chime in here real quick.
And
Camo,
like,
we kind of forced them to take the second one because I'm gonna be honest, between our 4 and 5 right now and taking them over at head coach for this game has been interesting to me.
Damn, we're bringing up everyone. Jesus Christ.
Hey, Sin, let me take FO for the Cardinals, man.
So it ain't even an FO for Cardinals.
I know, but I'm just saying.
What the hell is happening?
I don't know. I didn't even let him in. I think he let himself in.
I didn't let myself in here.
Well, I didn't let you in.
I know. I just told you I let myself in.
what? Oh my. Okay, we gotta get things organized. There's
Yep. It's too many people. Just too many people.
Can you talk now, Flix? Because he was supposed to. Hello?
Yo,
Bro, stop putting me in my way, bro. Stop doing that,
yo,
bro.
yo.
Hello?
Bro, Cowboy, bro.
Is that all from me? You
Uh,
guys don't need nothing else.
no.
bro, my mic is so ass. God bless.
Yo.
This man's is. I can hear the. Okay.
Yo, my boy, I think your clownfish is glitching out.
I'm just gonna point one
Fix your
thing out for the
clownfish.
Eagles is you like when they said when they like fourth quarter when you lose in the fourth quarter, like, because it's just you can look at so much sports and say, hey, the game's not over until it's over. And like when you're like losing by 3 and you just don't try in the fourth, you just let, like, down by 3 or down by 7, whatever, you can still come back. Like, it's not a far game. And you can't just like say to yourself, hey, I'm not gonna do good. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I always tell my team that, actually, like, even if we're like losing or we're winning, and if my team gets too cocky or if my team, gets discouraged, I just tell them, like, I mean, hey, we've been practicing all week for this. There's like 3 more minutes left. Just play it out. So I mean, yeah.
All right.
And like, again, tomorrow, some people, depending where they live, they would not be able to. Anyways, so the thing that annoys me most with Fusion is just because you have a high overall doesn't really necessarily mean you're that good. Like, you could be a 40, right? But you could just play this all the time. It doesn't necessarily mean you're good. So you can't just try someone out because they're a 99 or someone lower. Probably a 99 would probably have some skill, but you can't just try out a 40 and consider you're good. Like, I played with a 46, and the guy got released from every single team. He doesn't know the fundamentals. He can't even. He's a quarterback, and he averaged 4 interceptions a game. And, like, yeah.
Well, I got nothing else left to say for the new NFL teams or the game recaps. So I think we're going to end today's podcast. And for the GFL media team, I am the Cowboy Crab. And I have a phone call to take, so yeah, I'm ending it here. Goodbye.